So one of the most important things that my clients look at when moving to East Texas are the schools. So today's video is going to give you a breakdown of what I would qualify as the top 5 school districts in East Texas. We're going to do a breakdown on each district, let you look at the demographics, what they offer, what makes them a good choice, and all that in great detail. So stay tuned as we get right into it. So we're going to name the top 5 districts in East Texas, and I'm going to preface this a little bit by saying how we're going to qualify that. As an educator for over a decade, I was in education for 11 years, first as a teacher, coach, and then as an assistant principal working in administration. I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on what's important and kind of can give perspective on each of these communities just based on my familiarity with them as a coach and also working in those districts. So we're going to look at the scores on their T.E.A Report Card, which is the accountability system. And this is truthfully how we're going to, order and recognize these in this video, because that's the way the state rates them. They give them an accountability grade of A through F. We're going to be looking at the 21 and 22 school year because they have not released the 22 to 23 school years because of some discrepancies in the ratings and that sort of thing. So we're going to get right into it and go over the top 5 school districts in East Texas. So stay tuned. So the first school we are going to look at is Bullard ISD. It is one of the smaller of the 5 schools. They've got almost 2,800 students. Their high school has 837 students in it. So that will give you perspective. So East Texas schools are also organized by their high school size. So that high school number is really going to be important in terms of who they play in athletics and band competitions and things like that. So it's going to be organized by that. But again, Bullard, why it's probably one of my, if I were going to rank these, why it would probably end up higher on the list is really simply because of its location. It is very close to South Tyler, much more close than Lindale, which sits about right here. So that will be another district that we cover. But what to me makes Bullard very good is location. It's close to South Tyler while still maintaining kind of a small hometown feel, because it is a pretty small campus, relatively speaking, to Tyler ISD. We'll go through here and kind of look at the demographics. So Bullard is probably the least diverse of all of these schools. It does have an 85% white population, 8% Hispanic, and about 4% African American. So when we look at some of the others, it will be lower on the list of diversity. So these are the grades in how the state looks at these campuses, or at these districts rather. They're scored in these 3 areas, and there's a lot of different criteria that make these up. But very simply, student achievement is based on a few factors, but largely it's how well they perform on their standardized tests. And that is scored just, based on the better they do, the higher they get. School progress has a couple factors in there, deal with community outreach, attendance, things like that. And then closing the gaps simply looks at students' growth year over year. So let's say they make a 70 on their test as a 6th grader. When they take that same math test or for the new curriculum in 7th grade, they improve from 70 to 72. They will get a full point in that area. So that's how they're scored. The more points you get, the higher these grades are going to be. So let's look at college readiness. So Bullard actually has one of the lower college readiness in terms of, not overall, but in terms of their AP and IB junior and senior participation. And what that looks at, AP is advanced placement, which is a college board class. If you take the test and you get a certain score, you receive college credit for it. IB is the International Baccalaureate stuff, and it's very similar. It's a little bit more intensive. And actually, I think Tyler ISD is the only one that offers any IB courses currently. One of the reasons I believe that this number is going to be lower than most of the other campuses, or just relative to the state average, because a lot of them are going to be lower, is because the dual credit option is pushed very heavily in East Texas. So what dual credit is it allows your students to take a course from the university and get credit for it there, but it also counts as their high school credit, hence dual credit. The way it works at most of these schools, there will be a few exceptions to where they'll have teachers on campus that can administer the class, but what happens is the TJC, Tyler Junior College, for instance, is the county junior college. So they will send or they will have like a conference call 3 times a week. It would be just like a typical college class. The students have to pass the test. It is a college class all the way. They just also receive high school credit for it. Now, in TIC, we'll get to this in a little bit, but one of the ways that they operate the dual credit system is a lot of their teachers already have master's degrees in those fields. So they will end up teaching on behalf of the university, administering the class, as the university would expect, but they will take those classes in person, obviously, and meet with that teacher. But again, so that's a little bit lower than what you would expect, but largely it's going to be because of the dual credit participation is probably much, much higher. SAT score, it looks like their average SAT score is slightly above the statewide average, ACT about the same. You can see here how they perform in each of those categories. They do significantly better in the reading category versus the statewide average, slightly better in math. Reading and math is about 50% better. So they have a little over 204 teachers. I'm not sure how they calculate the 0.2. It's probably calculating percentage of part-time employees. So that may only add up to 0.2 because they've got however many part-time people. The majority of them, 78%, have a bachelor's degree, and about 22% have a master's degree. Surprisingly, nobody in the district has a doctorate degree. Their average teacher experience is 14 and a half years, which outpaces the state average by about 3.5 years. So that's pretty good. And their student to teacher ratio here is 13.7. So that's a little bit lower than the state average, which is good. Now, the student to teacher ratio as you get into the secondary schools really isn't as big a deal because you're going to have bigger classes at the junior high and high school level. It is more impactful at the elementary level. You will see in a lot of the TISD classes, unfortunately, that they will reach the maximum, which I believe is 24 in some cases. Now, that's not always the case. It varies year to year, but this number will matter more for those levels than it will at the secondary level. Bullard's pay is, on average, it's probably lower than most of the districts. It may be fourth lowest. Brownsboro probably being the lowest that we're going to talk about. As you can see, the beginner pay is very low. Statewide, it's about $15,000 lower. But it is a great district and a good place to teach. So that's why this number is so big. Teachers want to go there because it's a good job to have. Let's look at Bullard just to kind of give you a sense what that looks like. So they do have several. I will say one of the things that is good about Bullard is they are starting to build newer campuses and things like that. The high school is pretty new. They've got a new football stadium. They are the Panthers. They are blue and red, as you can see. The new Bullard ISD principal is a great guy. He does an excellent job, and he's going to keep that high school performing really well. But this kind of gives you a sense of that area. I think Bullard excels, athletically speaking, in baseball. They always have a lot of success year after year in that program. The basketball program is kind of hit or miss based on who the kids are there, and that kind of goes with the football program as well. Probably 5 to 10 years ago, they had a pretty good football program, but that coach is no longer there, and it's not directly related to the coach or anything like that, but their success just hasn't been the same since that coach left. But so for me, I think Bullard offers a great opportunity. The only B-rated campus in their district was the intermediate school. All the other campuses had an A rating, which is excellent. Having worked at an A-rated campus before, the biggest difference is just the quality of teachers. There's nothing magical that administration does or curriculum-wise or programs and things like that. It's just phenomenal teachers. And we will kind of look at that because that's not entirely true. You will have phenomenal teachers at campuses that are B-rated as well. But to me, being at an A-rated campus, what I felt was the biggest difference was just the quality of teachers that were there. So it's a phenomenal choice. It would definitely be one of the higher choices for me and my children. And why we like Bullard, I think, would just be the biggest reason its location. It's just south of Tyler. Because of that, it gives you access to all the new development and things like that in the area. Now I'll show you a map real quick. So Loop 49 is right there, which is the toll road that runs along the outside. All the development is south of the loop between Old Jacksonville, which is right there, and Broadway, and in and around here. That's kind of the hub of Tyler right now. You obviously have the heart of Tyler downtown and all this stuff through here. Newer stuff is right here. So you can see Bullard sits pretty close to all that. The town of Bullard is right there. It's a pretty small municipality, but you can see it stretches a pretty good ways west over here towards Lake Palestine, and then again a little bit further east. All right, so the next one we will look at will be Tyler ISD. So we are pulling all this information from Texas Tribune. They pull it from the Texas Education Agency site, and this is how they score all the schools. This is all public information. And that sort of thing. And this is really the biggest driving factor in how we're rating these schools based on the grades that the Texas Education Agency assigned them. So Tyler ISD is by far the biggest. Tyler ISD feels in a lot of ways much like a big city school district, just because it is, relatively speaking to the others, just it trumps them all in size. I think there's 15 elementaries. There's 4 middle schools. They have 3 magnet schools, Birdwell, which is a dual language, and Caldwell's an elementary, and then Moore, which is a junior high. They have 3 high schools as well. You've got the Early College High School, which is a newer addition more recently, Tyler Legacy, and Tyler High. So Tyler High is about 2,100 students. Tyler Legacy is 2,500 students. So they're both very big high schools, relatively speaking. We just talked about Bullard, and it is only 837 students. So they're almost, a third of what Tyler ISD is. So as we look here, TISD 2 years ago received a B. We do not have their last year's rating. They have 18,000 students, which is a lot. That's a very big district. We'll kind of go to the population breakdown. It's definitely the most diverse of all these districts that we will look at. You've got a 21% white population, 47% Hispanic, and 27% African American. You will have larger groups of smaller subpopulations between Asian and American Indian as well. So 78%, we didn't look at this actually on Bullard, 78% of the Tyler ISD student population is economically disadvantaged, and that just is a threshold based on their household earnings and income. So that means 78% of the students would qualify for free or reduced lunch. Let's look at how they did in the 3 main categories. They got B's across the board, which is totally fine. B's would not give me any concern. And much like I said, would say that you can have a bad experience at a great district, at a great school, and you can have a great experience at what might be considered a bad school or bad district. These are basically just how the state holds these campuses accountable, and they assign them these grades and evaluations and whatnot. So they're not the end all be all. To me, a B or an A-rated campus is fine. I would have no trouble sending my kids to any of these. In fact, they do attend Tyler ISD schools. So the 4 A-rated campuses in Tyler ISD were Owens Elementary, which is going to be zoned in the Flint, South Tyler area. Birdwell, which I believe is probably northwest Tyler. Caldwell is a magnet school, but it is also kind of central Tyler. And then the Early College High School, which is kind of unique. I don't totally know how that process works to get into that, but it is kind of like an application process. And I think it does remove you from the extracurricular activities as well. So you wouldn't be able to participate with Legacy or Tyler High from the Early College High School. All right, so looking at their college readiness, you can see here as well that the AP and IB participation in this section is actually pretty low. It's 13% relative to the state average of 21. And again, the biggest reason they're going to be lower is because of the dual credit options that Tyler Junior College provides. To me, that's a better bang for your dollar to go ahead and get those college credits knocked out, because a lot of kids, if you are successful in that area, will leave campus with maybe 30 plus hours when they enroll into school right after high school. So that's a big part of that. Now, I will say one of the things I do like about Tyler ISD is the fact that their AP, and I believe Tyler High still offers IB, their offerings in those courses are significantly greater than others just because the amount of resources and things like that they have. They're going to have more course offerings because there's just more students there. So the offerings that they will have in that AP and IB area will be, significant for sure. All right, so if we look at their average SAT score, it is a little above the average, 1,027. I think that's maybe a little low, better than Bullard. And their average ACT score is 21.4. They are actually below the reading level in the college readiness area in math and the combined area as well. So their performance in that area is lower, and a lot of that is going to be skewed just because of the total populations of students there. Looking at the overall, some of the, you'll see, they used to, I don't guess they do anymore, in front of, they do. In front of Legacy and Tyler High, you'll see all the schools that kids got into, and there are always Ivy League schools that students are accepted to. So there are plenty of opportunities for success. This is just going to be more so the case when you get into schools with much bigger populations, because you have a lot more special populations too that are going to affect these numbers. Another part of this, they do offer a decent bit of career and technology stuff, which is a big push, and we'll kind of talk about that in a minute. So they have almost 1,240 teachers. They have 70% have a bachelor's, 28% have a master's, and about 1% have their doctorate degree. You do have a lot of great teachers here. I would argue, not entirely, but some of the greatest teachers I've been around, having been in 3 districts, work in Tyler ISD because they truthfully have the highest pay, and that's going to typically draw the most qualified. So you're going to see, candidates with very high degrees, and a lot of this will be at the classroom level, but you'll also see, I believe, this may factor in administration. Their student to teacher ratio is the state average. It is going to be higher than almost all of these surrounding districts. Again, that's going to matter a little bit in the elementary level, where you're going to see that come into play, but you do have the highest average. Their teacher experience is a little bit below the state average. They do, because they've got so many positions to fill, they're going to have more, brand new teachers and whatnot. These numbers have actually changed. They actually got a significant pay raise this past school year. So I think the starting salary is actually a little over $50,000 now, with some of those more experienced teachers making almost $70,000 a year. So they are going to be much closer to the statewide average in every way in terms of pay. And that's another reason why they attract some of the more experienced teachers. So they actually have built a ton of new campuses. I think the oldest campus in the district that is being used by students was like in the early 2000s. Some of the elementary schools, they went through phases changing those campuses, and then built out the new middle schools. Hubbard is actually the oldest, but they are in the process of getting a new campus, which is a middle school that you can see right here. This is where my kids go. We really do love it here. The principal is very, very good, and it's a really great school. So that's Jack Elementary. You can kind of see what it looks like there. It's a really beautiful campus. It's right off of Old Jacksonville as well, but it's South Tyler's school, and you can see it's all the junior highs are very new. Moore is the Magna campus, kind of on the east side of Tyler, and they'll offer different programs and things like that maybe more in the realm of arts and stuff like that. It used to be Robert E. Lee High School, but they changed the name, I think, a year after it was built. But you can see, that's probably a better picture. It's a really beautiful campus as well. It sits right off the loop. Tyler High, they kept a lot of the original structure and then added on to the front of it, but it is inside, largely renovated everywhere. They just improved the facade and renovated the inside. So again, lots of new schools there. So for me, why we like Tyler ISD and why I would advocate Tyler ISD for anybody is just the choice. The sheer size of it allows them to choose from more friend groups. They're able to fit in with more people just because there's so many more. So, in a smaller school district, sometimes that can be tougher if your interests and things like that are not aligned with everybody else. But if you're in a big school district, there's a lot of kids like you. So it makes it easier to make friends and that sort of thing. Additionally, I like the offerings in terms of course choices as well. The Career and Technology Center is a beautiful campus to where they offer stuff from culinary, auto paint, salon, I'm trying to think, cosmetology was the word I was looking for, web design, all kinds of offerings at that center, which are really great, and you can leave with good certifications leaving high school. So just the money and resources that Tyler ISD offers is really pretty phenomenal, and it gives your student a lot of choice in the coursework that they choose, or just in the friends that they hang out with too. In terms of sports, they do have a few more offerings or are more competitive in some of the bigger stuff, just because you're going to play against the biggest schools in the state. No program specifically stands out. Tyler Legacy's baseball program is traditionally okay, a little above average in their district. Football is pretty inconsistent at Legacy. Tyler High traditionally is more successful. On the basketball side, neither school really stands out or does that well year to year or consistently. On the girls' side, Legacy basketball is normally a little bit better. Volleyball is kind of hit or miss on both schools. So again, nothing incredible athletically that would put these schools above any other in terms of their consistent success. But they do offer a lot of sports, and you get to play against the highest level of competition because you're going to play against the biggest schools in East Texas. So Legacy will actually largely only play in district schools in the Metroplex area, so you're going to play all those big schools, so the level of competition is just going to be higher given the size of the school. Brownsboro ISD. This was the district that I finished my career in education in, and we really loved it. I love the community. The type of people in the community I think are really nice, but it is very different from Legacy and even Bullard in that regard. So it is the smallest of the 5 districts that we're going to look at. 25, almost 2,600 students in total, and about 760 of those are in the high school. Overall, it is a B-rated district. You can see, if we zoom out, it sits on the west side of Tyler. So Brownsboro itself is probably a little further out than Bullard would be, but maybe not by much. But it's actually a pretty big school district and encompasses Chandler, Texas also. So Chandler has an elementary and an intermediate school, which will take them K through 6, K through 2 K through 3 actually at the elementaries, and then 4, 5, and 6 at the intermediate schools in Chandler and Brownsboro. But they are all part of the district, so there's 6 schools in the district. But I think what is good about Brownsboro and Chandler is you're just 15 minutes from South Tyler if you live in Chandler. Chandler's a cool little small town. They don't have a lot. They've got a Brookshire's and lots of restaurants, things like that. It's probably 2,000 to 3,000 people. Brownsboro itself is really just the school district. You do have a handful of restaurants and things like that in the community. There's a bank, there's a small grocery store and whatnot, but largely it's just the town itself and the schools. So it's a much more rural area than I would say even Bullard for that matter. So as we look at the makeup, it's definitely less diverse than what Tyler ISD is. About 73% white, 17% Hispanic, and about 6% African American. About 60% economically disadvantaged, so it is actually a little bit lower than, about on par with the statewide average, a little bit less than Tyler ISD. They got B's across the board. The only A-rated campus in Brownsboro was actually the campus that I was a part of for 4 years, is Brownsboro Junior High, consistently rated as an A-rated campus. And it's tough to pinpoint what makes our campus better than the others. I will say that I know working at our campus specifically, we had a ton of incredible teachers. Those teachers, incredible teachers, exist on every campus. To me, that was the easiest thing to point to. We just had really good teachers, and year in and year out, it proved itself to be an A-rated campus. So looking at their college readiness and their participation in AP, which is Advanced Placement Courses, or IB, it's a little bit lower than the state average, but it is higher than the other 2. So they get their dual credit courses from Athens Community College, Trinity Valley, which is in Athens, but they don't have a lot of teachers on campus, so a lot of it is done virtually through conference calls and things like that. If you look at their SAT scores, they actually have a higher average than the other two that we have looked at on SAT, but a little bit lower on ACT. They are a little bit below grade level college readiness in the categories of really all three. So Bullard was above in the college readiness scores in all categories. Tyler was below by a decent bit in all of those, and Brownsboro is just a little bit below. So again, smaller district, they only have 193 teachers. They have about 88% have their bachelor's and about 10% have their master's. They have no teachers with a doctorate degree. Their teacher to student ratio is pretty low at 13.4, which is pretty good. They are slightly above the statewide teacher experience. So the average teacher there has about 12 years experience. So it's better than TISD, but less than Bullard. One of the downsides to Brownsboro is, truthfully, they don't pay their teachers as much because their tax base and whatnot is a little bit lower than Tyler. Bullard, actually, they're probably not far from the Bullard pay scale, but Bullard's a little bit nicer area, I would say, just in terms of being newer and more developed. So they do struggle at times, to get more teachers out there as jobs turn over. But that's a problem, truthfully, in education everywhere. So this one again, Brownsboro ISD encompasses two towns in Chandler and Brownsboro. Chandler is the bigger of the two. Traditionally in athletics, they are very successful in girls basketball every year. Football for the boys is hit or miss. The boys basketball team is usually pretty good too. They do have a great group there currently leading, the Brownsboro football team, but largely their success has been dependent on who the kids are in that grade that year. So when you get better kids going through, they are the Bears, blue and gold, as you can see. They do have newer elementaries and intermediate schools within the past, probably 10 to 15 years, maybe a little bit older. The junior high and high school are both older campuses. They just passed a bond to build the new Fine Arts Center where theater will be housed and dance and a handful of other things. You can kind of see a rendering of that here. Going to sit between the junior high and high school. So what we loved about Brownsboro and why we almost sent our kids there was I like that it's a small town feel, but you're still very close to Tyler. It's a little bit more of a rural type student. They're more used to working with animals and that sort of thing. They also have a great FFA program, tons of participation, which is Future Farmers of America, but what that entails is a lot of leadership stuff, public speaking. You do raise animals and compete with that, and that's a very big draw, and they have a ton of success in that area at the high school and junior high level. So those are big pools and things that they do very well at Brownsboro, but largely just the community, the people that live there and are a big part of it, I think are phenomenal, and a big reason why we considered sending our kids there initially. Whitehouse ISD. So people moving to East Texas for the first time focus on two schools primarily, and that's Whitehouse and Lindale. So we're going to go over those two schools next. We're going to look at Whitehouse first. So we also did not talk about that real quick. I'll just kind of highlight this. The schools are classified by their high school size. Bullard is in a 4A classification. Brownsboro is also 4A. Lindale is also 4A, but they're the bigger 4A. Whitehouse is 5A, and Tyler is 6A. So Whitehouse ISD, almost 5,000 students. They've got about 1,500 in the high school. They have an A rating overall. If you look at Whitehouse, truthfully, it's very similar. It's actually probably closer to South Tyler than Bullard. To me, I've just never really been drawn to the town itself. There's not a lot there. It's a little bit older, but not in any way bad. I'm just being very particular about whatever. But Whitehouse is a phenomenal school district. It's also home of Patrick Mahomes. So maybe if your kid's pretty good at football, they may be the next one. No, I'm kidding. But so Whitehouse sits here southeast of Tyler, and it encompasses a big portion of the Lake Tyler area as well. So looking at their breakdown, a little bit more diverse than some of these other smaller districts, about 64% white, 13% African American, and 15% Hispanic. They do have a 3% Asian population as well. We'll continue to their accountability ratings. They performed well in school progress and closing the gaps. School progress encompasses a couple different things I think we talked about earlier, but it looks at, community outreach and things like that. So this one has a little bit more that it encompasses. But overall, they came out an A with their student achievement a B, and I actually could probably find it, but it's probably a high B. So their AB or AP and IB participation is actually about on par. So it's higher than the other three that we've looked at so far, and I honestly don't know why. Their course offerings are probably, sorry about that little fall there, are probably a little bit greater, and because of that, they will have more choices and stuff like that. Or it could just be that they don't push the dual credit quite as much as some of the others. They have the highest of all the schools that we've looked at. Their average ACT score, SAT score is 1150. I think Brownsboro was the second highest at like 1021. So their average SAT score is pretty good. It's about 10% higher than the state average, and almost about 15% higher on their SAT score. However, their college readiness on the whole falls below. And this is a more complex rating. I wouldn't say that if your kid goes there, they're not ready for college. Just the way these things are scored are kind of hit or miss. But you can see they're about 15% lower in reading, 5% lower in math, and about 10% lower overall. They have 352 teachers. About 80% have their bachelor's, where 20% have their master's. So they're above average in bachelor's, below average in master's, but that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Their student per teacher ratio is higher, and this is not unusual for a bigger district. This number is going to grow closer to that state average. The smaller the district, the closer it's going to, or the lower that number is going to be most typically. Teacher experience, 12.6 years, so it is above the state average. It's going to be higher than Tyler ISD, and they do, pay scale wise, relatively speaking, they're close to Tyler ISD, so they're going to attract good teachers and things like that out there. This is their new junior high campus. They are the Wildcats, maroon colors, again well known for Patrick Mahomes. They got a newer football facility too. Yeah, here's a picture of the stadium, the outside. Whitehouse just hasn't, as a town, developed as much, I think, as some of the others, just because it is very close to South Tyler. You've got, let's see, get lots of houses out here. It is very close to the lake. Actually, Lake Tyler runs almost into the city of Whitehouse, so that's obviously a big part of why people like Whitehouse. You've got some beautiful multi-million-dollar homes out there in Whitehouse on the lake. So this is Whitehouse ISD. Actually, this is just Whitehouse, the municipality. The district encompasses a portion of Lake Tyler over here, and then I think it goes further south, about halfway to True. So you can see it is very, very close to that big section of South Tyler. Not as many new housing developments here as you have in Lindale and Bullard, but they do have a handful for sure. So what I would say Whitehouse's strengths is they have consistently been a very strong academic school. It also has really close proximity to South Tyler, which is a big draw. If you like the lake life, or you want to have a house on the lake and go to good schools, Whitehouse is your only option. Well, there are a handful of very nice homes on Lake Palestine. So to me, I think Whitehouse is the draw for those reasons. It's got great academics. It's very close to South Tyler. Largely, a lot of the homes in Whitehouse in the city and in and around that area are very affordable. The lake homes are, beautiful homes, but they're obviously very expensive. So to me, Whitehouse has consistently performed well academically. Its location is excellent. The next one is going to be Lindale ISD. Everybody's top choice, and to me, they've consistently kind of been in a tier of their own, because since the beginning of accountability ratings, when it used to be a score, a letter, all this kind of stuff, Lindale has consistently been the highest. I believe actually every campus in their district received an A rating. It's just a phenomenal school district. The superintendent, Stan Surratt, is kind of the standard that everybody tries to. They do a great job there, and nothing negative to say, but let's kind of get into the specific. So they've got about 4,200 students, which makes them one of the bigger 4As. which would put them above Brownsboro and Bullard, but smaller than Whitehouse. You've got a little less diversity, but not the least diverse. About 70% white, 18% Hispanic, and 5% American. Again, one of the areas that they actually struggle with is closing the gaps because the student achievement score is so consistently high that it's hard for students to improve because truthfully they do excellent every year. I don't know what the secret sauce is over there, but they've consistently done very well. All right, so when we look at their AB, AP, and IB participation, they are about like the others. They have a lower number at 15.2%. And again, I think that's largely going to be because of pushing credit courses. It does show actually, though, that the students, I didn't look at this in the other numbers, but this number is actually significantly higher than all the others. Those students that are in fact taking those courses, a 70% clip are passing those tests to where the state average is 48.6. So that's a very, very big number. That's pretty impressive. Their SAT score, again, is very high. It is, I think, right around where Whitehouse's was. But if you remember, Brownsboro, Bullard, and Tyler were around the state average. Their SAT score is about 20% higher, actually. So they're doing very, very well in those areas. Looking at their college readiness, again, this is not a perfect figure, but you can see that those areas are areas in which they're not scoring super well. Why that is, I'm not sure, but this is probably a little bit better than ISD, but definitely lower in that area. All right, so their student-to-teacher ratio is 14, so it's a little better than the state average given the size. It's about what you would expect. We'll go back to their teachers. They have about 80% that have a bachelor's degree and 20% that have a master's, no teachers with a doctorate degree. And their average experience is 13.4 years, with beating the state average by about 2.5 years. So their salaries are probably third among the 5 districts that we've looked at. Bullard, it would probably be Brownsboro, Bullard, Lindale, Whitehouse. They pay a little less than average. That's the state, but about average for this. We'll go to their main page because there's a graphic on there that's pretty good. Kind of shows you that breakdown. So again, their academics, their performance on standardized testing is always very, very good. 6 state championships in UIL academics, which is a category of a bunch of different like math, reading, geography, performance. It's just a mixture of stuff, and they've got 6 state championships, which is pretty remarkable. 3 consecutive state band championships, so they are continuously very successful in this area as well. So I will say this, I don't know about Whitehouse and Bullard, but I'm pretty sure Bullard is. I know Brownsboro is also 1-to-1, and what that means is, so Lindale, Brownsboro, and I think Bullard are 1-to-1, meaning every student has a form of a technology device that they get to take home and do their work. Lindale is 1-to-1 with the iPad. Brownsboro, I know, is 1-to-1 with the Chromebook, and I believe Bullard may be Chrome. So that gives you a sense of like how students are able to do a lot of their work. They push them toward these devices because truthfully, that's the way the state tests them too. They take all their standardized tests. The Lindale, as you can see, consistently a great academic school. That's Stan Surratt. He's the so they do have a pretty new football stadium. They've got a couple newer campuses as well. They did build an indoor facility for the football team more recently. They are the Eagles, blue and white. Here's a couple other campuses right here. Okay, so Lindale's downtown area is a pretty cool area. Once you move north of I-20, a couple miles, you'll see the downtown area. It's home of Miranda Lambert. They've kind of developed this area off of that main strip of 69 over here. They've got looks like they call it Pickers Pavilion or whatever, but you've got a big restaurant there. You've got a couple shops and stores off of that main stretch there. You look off of Interstate 20. They built several new things here recently. The Chick-fil-A is crushing it as always. They built a Panda Express here also. So they're starting to get more development. You do also have on the west side of Lindale, you've got the Target Distribution Center, which is a major hub. Additionally, you've got the FedEx operating center over here. So it makes those areas very popular for work and things like that. You do have a lot of new home developments and things like that in Lindale, probably at a greater scale than you do probably any of them. More new homes are being built in Lindale than definitely Whitehouse, Bullard, Brownsboro. So that is Lindale ISD. So what I would say, successful. It's really just wonderful, wonderful district. So that's one of the reasons I think why most people look there. They do have 1,200 students in the high school, so it is kind of in between all the 5 that we have looked at. To me, the biggest drawback with Lindale specifically is its relative. It's on the north side of Tyler, and because of that, I think your drive to get to the stuff you're going to use in Tyler's. It is also, though, the biggest town. You've got, I think, 5,000 people that live in Lindale. So because of that, you're going to have more stuff there from Walmart, groceries, Lowe's, more restaurant choices than any of these towns individually will have. So Lindale is a lot more self-sufficient, I guess, if you want to say it that way, than these other towns. I hope you found this helpful. Just wanted to give you my perspective. Coming from an education background, this is one of the biggest factors I know in people choosing their schools or choosing where they live is the schools that they attend. I truly believe any of these 5 districts are great and would have no issue sending my kids to any of these as students. I think there are benefits to every one of them uniquely. I don't know that one is much better than the other, truthfully. I think it's really just kind of the makeup of the town. Thanks for checking out our video. Make sure that you like our channel and you subscribe to any notifications. That way, when we do our new videos, continuing to break down all of East Texas and Tyler, you'll be alerted immediately. That way you can check those videos out. So again, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email, text message, give me a call, leave us a comment, and we will take care of you. We'll see you on the next one.